What you are about to see is not a single battle. It is a systematic dismantling, layer by layer, of an entire assault structure. By the time the last strike lands, the force that entered the approach zone no longer exists as a coordinated unit. It has been reduced to scattered individuals, burning wreckage, and silence where radio traffic used to be. But here is what makes this so striking. The collapse did not begin at the front line. It began in the sky, minutes before a single soldier set foot on the ground. The first thing to understand is that this battlefield no longer has a safe rear. Every zone, from the air above the front to the roads behind it, from temporary regrouping points to radar installations and artillery positions, is now part of one continuous kill chain. The question is no longer how many troops or vehicles can be pushed forward. The question is whether any movement can stay unnoticed long enough to survive. More than 90% of Russian UAVs approaching Ukrainian positions are now being intercepted before they reach their targets. That single fact reshapes everything that follows, because those UAVs are not just machines. They are the eyes of the operation. Remove them early enough, and the entire assault moves forward blind. The first stage of this sequence begins in the air, well behind the front line. A Russian reconnaissance drone flies low and steady, scanning fields and tree lines, sending a live feed back to the units preparing to move. From its own camera view, the sky looks empty. Nothing appears to threaten it. Then, at the edge of the frame, a small FPV drone appears, still distant, holding back, matching the target's speed and direction rather than rushing in. The FPV operator does not attack immediately. The pilot watches how the UAV moves, how stable its path is, and waits for the right angle. Slowly, the FPV shifts into a position above and slightly behind the target, a spot that is harder to detect, keeping the approach smooth to avoid any sudden motion that might trigger a course change. The timing here is everything. Move too early and the UAV may climb or turn. Wait too long and it leaves the area entirely. The decision comes in a fraction of a second. The FPV accelerates, closes the remaining distance, and drives straight into the reconnaissance drone. The screen goes static. The flight is over before it transmitted anything useful. What was lost in that moment is invisible from the ground. No explosion, no crater. Just a set of coordinates that will never arrive. Coordinates that would have guided artillery, exposed a position, or confirmed a route. Each interception like this one quietly changes what comes next. Units moving forward lose another piece of the picture. The battlefield becomes less readable with every drone that disappears. From above, these look like small, isolated encounters between machines. But from a wider view, this is the first layer of pressure, the one that shapes everything that follows. The air is no longer just a space for observation. It has become a place where information is cut before it can be used. And that loss begins to affect decisions even before vehicles start moving. The next phase begins the moment a troop carrier reaches the edge of the approach zone near Picross. That is where movement stops being an advantage and starts becoming a trap. The vehicle comes in fast along a damaged track, throwing dust, closing the final distance toward the point where infantry is supposed to dismount and form the first line of the assault. From ground level, speed feels like protection. From above, it is confirmation of intent. A reconnaissance drone has already been holding contact on the route. It watches the carrier slow, watches the rear section begin to shift, watches the men inside prepare to jump. This is the most valuable and most vulnerable moment simultaneously. A loaded transport arriving exactly where troops are about to step out. The FPV comes in low and fast. The operator keeps the nose locked on the center mass of the vehicle. There is no second pass, no waiting for a cleaner shot. The impact lands before the unloading is complete. The carrier is disabled at the exact point where the assault was supposed to take shape. What follows is not chaos in the dramatic sense. It is something more operationally damaging, a broken sequence of individual reactions. Some troops try to move away from the blast quickly. Others hesitate because the direction ahead is no longer clear. The convoy behind the first vehicle now sees fire, wreckage, and a route that may already be compromised. The second transport cannot advance with confidence. Supporting elements face a choice between pressing into the same danger zone or slowing down and risking a wider collapse in coordination. One burning vehicle, one broken rhythm, and the assault has not yet begun. But the sequence does not stop with the men who survived the first strike. It follows them. Some jump clear and run toward the tree line. Others drop into shallow ground cuts or press against broken earth. From ground level, any cover feels better than staying near the wreck. From above, the movement away from the blast does not look like escape. It looks like a trail. Each figure moves in a slightly different direction, but all of them remain visible as fragments of the same broken assault. The overhead drone keeps the scene in view without rushing the next strike, because the more valuable opportunity is not to hit the survivors immediately. It is to watch where they are going, and whether someone from the rear will try to restore the push. Minutes later, that answer arrives. A logistics truck moves forward from behind the approach route, not in panic, but steadily, carrying ammunition and fresh support for the next phase. The drone watches it leave the main track and turn toward a line of trees. Behind those trees, soldiers are already pulling in from different directions. Some came from the destroyed carrier. Others were positioned nearby. They are converging on the same point, trying to rebuild order from the ground up. The FPV waits until the gathering is complete, until the supply truck is at the center, until resupply, regrouping, and command are finally coming back together in one place. Then the strike comes. The ammunition that was meant to keep the push alive never reaches the men who need it. The soldiers who believed they had found a brief pause are thrown back into disorder before any structure can be rebuilt. The second strike does not simply add to the damage. It removes the chance to repair the first failure. This logic then moves deeper. Once infantry and logistics have been disrupted, the pressure reaches the assets that help hold the wider area together. A radar vehicle moving along a rear route, likely trying to reposition and maintain coverage over a sector that is becoming unstable, is larger, more distinct, and easier to track than scattered infantry. An FPV strikes it, but does not fully destroy it. The vehicle slows, then begins to move again, and in doing so, it reveals something more valuable than a static target: a route, a direction, and confirmation that the system has already been forced out of its role. A second FPV follows the damaged vehicle along a narrow path and finishes the job. The sector loses a key layer of awareness at the exact moment when other units behind the line still need warning and coordination. Artillery positions face the same pattern. A gun placed under tree cover, beside trunks, in a narrow clearing where the canopy breaks up its outline from above. The first FPV does not aim for the center of the weapon. It clips branches near the position, tears open part of the concealment, and exposes more of the gun. The second drone then has a cleaner lane. One accurate strike is enough to turn a concealed firing point into a disabled asset. After dark, this pressure does not stop. It shifts. Vehicles and personnel, moving between positions, begin to stand out differently through thermal optics as the background cools. Engines, bodies, and fresh tracks hold heat. A truck crossing a gap between trees, a crew repositioning, a damaged system trying to relocate. All of it becomes visible again once the light is gone. Darkness no longer guarantees a pause. It only changes how the target appears. The final stage of this chain reaches the air defense systems that were supposed to protect everything behind them. A crew positioned deeper in the rear may still believe it holds a meaningful shield over the area. But once the earlier layers have already failed, once aerial awareness has been cut, the troop carrier destroyed, the survivors struck again, the radar and artillery disabled, that crew is no longer just protecting the sector. Their vehicle has become one of the most valuable targets inside it. When it is hit, the area behind it loses structure. Routes, supply points, and support vehicles that once sat under its coverage now face a wider opening above them. What this entire sequence reveals is that the collapse did not happen because of one mistake or one burning vehicle. It happened because every link behind the initial movement was struck in succession until the push lost shape entirely. The UAV layer was cut first, then the assault vehicle. Then the survivors were tracked into their regroup point. Then the support truck exposed that point further. Then radar, artillery, and finally the air defense layer were drawn into the same chain. The real warning here is not tactical. It is structural. This battlefield is compressing. Mistakes no longer stay local. One delay can expose a road. One damaged vehicle pulls in more men, more supplies, and more drones. One forced relocation creates the next target. The entire space, from the front to the deep rear, is becoming one continuous zone of detection and pursuit. The side trying to recover momentum is forced to adapt constantly. The side controlling the air above only needs to keep the chain active. If this kind of analysis is worth your time, like the video, share it, and subscribe to stay with this coverage. Because the next phase of this conflict may come down to one question that neither side has fully answered yet. Which force can still move before it is seen?